Welcome to Football Daily, where today we've made up a team of 11 players who were forced out of their homelands but went on to football glory. Goalkeeper, Rayundo Perez Lazama. We've covered Asmir Begovic plenty of times, so our keeper is the rarely known Rayundo Lazama, who escaped to England at the age of 14 because of the Spanish Civil War. The Basque stopper was a part of the Havana ship where him, his brother and nearly 4,000 children sailed to Southampton. Rayundo would go on to play 3 wartime games for the Saints and return to Spain in 1940 once the conflict came to an end. 1 year later he signed for Athletic Bilbao and spent his next 16 years in the red and white, winning 2 league titles, 6 Copa del Reys and earning 1 cap for Spain. Defender, Talan Xhaka. Technically the son of refugees, the lesser-known Xhaka brothers' story is still worthy of a place in our team. His parents are Albanian but had to leave their city of Pristania, which is now in Kosovo, in 1990, as the region became more and more unstable. Ethnic conflict was rife and Xhaka's father Ragip spent more than 3 years in prison for protesting against the government, which was then hardline communist. After he was released, he and his wife left the country, travelling through Italy to Switzerland, where their sons Talan and Granit were born. The brothers could have represented Kosovo at international level, but Granit chose the country of his birth, whilst Talan went with his ethnic identity, turning out for Albania. But his hometown still remains Basel, where he has spent his entire career, bar a short loan to Grasshopper. Defender, Loric Shana. Born in Kosovo to a footballing family, Shana and his family fled Pristina at the age of 7 to Lausanne, Switzerland, and were granted the status of political refugees. Starting his youth career at Dardania Lausanne, an amateur side coached by his dad, founded by an Albanian community, Shana was eventually scouted by PSG and moved to France as a 19-year-old. The versatile hardman spent 3 full seasons at PSG, winning a Coupe de France but failed to nail down a starting place, eventually moving to league rivals Marseille in 2005. Just 2 years later, he was appointed club captain before embarking on a European tour. He featured for Sunderland, Galatasaray, Lazio and is currently at Nantes, but also had the honour of captaining Albania in their first major international tournament. It didn't go to plan though, as he became the first player to get sent off in the competition and hung up his international boots once the Euros ended. Defender, Dejan Lovren. Dejan Lovren has recently had a documentary on him growing up as a refugee made by his club Liverpool, which we would advise anyone to watch to get the deep understanding of the difficulties of becoming a refugee during the Bosnian War. But we'll sum it up as precisely as possible. At the age of 3, Dejan and his family stuffed their belongings into a tiny car and fled to Germany, but due to the frantic nature of their escape, failed to have the required paperwork that would have granted them permanent exile. After settling into German culture through the educational system, even visiting Bayern Munich's training ground, Lovren was once again on the move, as his family were deported to Croatia. At just 10, Lovren felt like an outsider, being teased for his German accent, but found football as a way to fit in. Eventually becoming a pro at Dynamo Zagreb, Lovren has enjoyed spells at Lyon, Southampton and is currently reviving his career at Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp. Midfielder, Fabrice Muamba. Muamba's career is most associated with the cardiac arrest he suffered in 2012 at White Hart Lane, where his heart stopped for 78 minutes, but he still made a remarkable recovery despite the fact he was unable to continue his playing career afterwards. But this wasn't the only time Muamba's life was in danger, as he had to flee Zaire as his father was an ambassador to the Prime Minister as the Congo War had begun. His father escaped to England in 1994, and 5 years later, after he was granted asylum, Muamba and his mother eventually joined him. Speaking no English when he arrived, Fabrice made friends in football and achieved A-levels whilst coming through Arsenal's academy. He made just 2 appearances for the Gunners though, before moving on to Birmingham and his final club, Bolton. Since his retirement, he's delved into punditry and has also graduated from Staffordshire University with a degree in sports journalism. Midfielder, Bangura. Quite possibly the most harrowing story on this list, Bangura was the victim of a human trafficking ring following his escape from Sierra Leone. Al's father was the head of the Poro Secret Society and died when Bangura was just a child. Despite this, he was still expected to replace his father when he grew up. But after refusing to do so, Bangura fled to Guinea, where he hoped to fulfill his ambition of becoming a professional footballer. Things took a sour turn though, as a man he met who promised to fulfill his dream of shipping him to the UK instead forced him to become a male prostitute. The man apparently left Bangura in a building with 2 or 3 guys who all tried to rape him and make him do stuff in his own words. Luckily, Bangura escaped, and he sought asylum in the UK, which he was eventually granted. There he managed to get scouted by Watford, where he went on to make 16 Premier League appearances. Although Bangura never hit the heights of world football, he certainly found a better life for himself as a professional. Midfielder Rio Mavuba. The only professional footballer to be born at sea, Mavuba was born in the midst of a family fleeing the Angolan Civil War. That's right, his actual birth certificate didn't state a nation of birth. It simply read, born at sea. Rio and his family were given the status of political refugees upon entering France, but tragedy was yet to come for the midfielder, as both his parents died before he turned 16. His escape from grief was football, and before long he was in Bordeaux's academy, and eventually made nearly 130 appearances for the first team. A €7 million move to Villarreal followed, and Mavuba played just 290 minutes in La Liga before being shipped off to Lille, where he has since made over 300 appearances for Les Dogs. Midfielder Miralem Pjanic. Pjanic's family fled Yugoslavia after the outbreak of the Bosnian War and found refuge in Luxembourg, a tiny country bordering Germany, France and Belgium, whose most capped player is Jeff Strasser. No, we don't know who that is either. Always keen to play football as a kid, Pjanic's father let him join the local side at the age of 7. His talent was immediately evident, and Pjanic even played for the Luxembourg under-17s and under-19 teams before getting his big move to Metz following interest from multiple clubs. Discovered by the French side through former player and Luxembourg international Guy Hayers, Pjanic played just 1 season for Metz before a €7.5 million move to Lyon. He just missed out on Lyon's incredible run of 7 titles in a row, but under the tutelage of Juninho, Pjanic became a set-piece specialist and developed into a fine playmaker as well. Later, playing for Roma, Pjanic got a move to Juventus in the summer of 2016, where he hopes to secure the first league title of his career. Forward, Lomana LuaLua. It could have been Kazenga or Lomana, but we've gone for the somersaulting latter, who most famously played for Newcastle and Portsmouth. The striker arrived in England at the age of 9, as he fled the Congo War and Zaire ceased to exist. Settling in Forest Gate in the London borough of Newham, Lomana played football and regularly practiced gymnastics, as he was spotted by Colchester. Scoring 15 goals in 61 games led him to be signed by Bobby Robson at Newcastle, who called LuaLua a special talent. Sadly, his career didn't really take off, with disciplinary issues and malaria affecting his spell at Portsmouth, and he eventually became a journeyman across Greece, Qatar, Cyprus and Turkey, but he did still have an impressive 12-year spell with DR Congo's national side. Forward, Ousman Manneh. Just 19 years of age, Manneh is the youngest of our 11 and has only 6 senior appearances to his name, but he's already been through a perilous journey to become a professional footballer at Werder Bremen. Like many, Manneh got into football at a young age, training with the Rush Academy, but a decade later, Gambia was in the midst of a terrible dictatorship. Manneh, like many other Gambians, fled the country. First arriving in Italy, he was refused entry by the Italian authorities and made his way onto Germany. Living in a refugee camp with 19 other unaccompanied teenagers, his footballing talent was spotted by scouts, and he got offered a 3-year deal at Werder. Over a year later, he scored a goal in the Bundesliga, and the Gambian is certainly one to look out for. Forward, Mario Stanic. Like Lovren and Pjanic, former Parma and Chelsea attacker Mario Stanic was forced out of his homeland by the outbreak of the Bosnian War in 1992. The 20-year-old Stanic had already established himself as one to watch in Sarajevo, but as racial tensions built, he knew it was time to leave. Stanic waded across the Stava River to reach safety, and after a single year with Croatia Zagreb, he left the former Yugoslavia behind altogether, signing for Sporting Gijón. He ended up playing for 4 clubs in as many years, before settling at Parma in the late 90s, where he won the Italian Cup and Super Cup. After that came Chelsea, but at club level, Stanic never quite delivered on the exceptional promise he had shown as a youngster. He did clock up 49 caps for Croatia though, helping them to the semi-final of the World Cup in 1998, and in the process he became an emblem of the new, independent Croat homeland.
So thank you for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, stay an FD by clicking here, and as ever, don't forget to like and subscribe.